Hi, it's Kevin from Let Me Tech You, and this is another video in our IT short stories. And what I'm going to be talking about today is a time when we use a technology called um, OptioFax, basically like a fax server. Was running on a 2003 server, and it basically just took invoices and emailed them out to basically people who customers who purchased our products. And sometimes it would go down, sometimes it was easy to just bring back up, but it was a technology that wasn't really something we were kind of pushing to keep around for too long, but it just worked. So there wasn't really a lot of maintenance that we really did with it. When I had came into the company, it had its own PRI line, so it went out on its own voice circuit as far as for the fax line, and basically sat on a Dell server, and it just worked. So it kind of was integrated in with our ERP system and things like that. But when it went down, there weren't really like a lot of big problems. Like there was times where it had issues where it would go down, and for a day or two no one would notice, but once a customer who needed their invoices wasn't getting them, then it became a problem. So we would just go in, restart it, resend invoices, they would start to work again. So one of the things that you know um, I wasn't really a big fan of is fax machines, printers. So the whole faxing thing was one of the things I just didn't really want to care to deal with. Try to learn. I know in IT there's so many different technologies that we deal with. You just don't have time to kind of grasp the need for all of them, and faxing was one of those things. And my whole thing was to try to get this thing digital at some point. As far as either going through email or some type of digital fax system, whether it be online. You got stuff like Ring Central, all these other technologies out there. But we still have this old server sitting in our server room. And I believe actually it wasn't even a Dell server. I think it was a one of them IBM I can't remember, X series servers. So even then, there was some like oddities with how that kind of worked, because some of the configurations as far as like the BIOS and how you updated components and things like that, like IBM's website. If you've ever been on their website to get uh, any type of server updates, product, it's a nightmare. But that's a whole nother story in itself. So really, the problem that I'm going to be talking about is basically one day, this server, just like any other time, hey, faxes aren't going out. Like, oh, okay, go in there, check it. Sometimes we'll check to see if the fax line is loose. Sometimes the cable would be a little loose, so we'd go in, unplug, plug back in. I really never really needed to try to crimp a new one or something, because it was always just either car was a little loose, or um, or we just need to reboot it. The software was hung up or something like that. So what I ended up doing was none of those kind of check downs that I normally do was happening or was working. So what I ended up doing was I rebooted it, because at times there was be times where it is 2003. We were looking to get rid of this server anyway because it was on 2003, but the software that the reason we couldn't just get a new server or virtualize it, which we had virtualization, was because this server basically licensed itself off of a virtual card that came from this company. And the card itself then had the fax line that you plugged into it, and then plugged into our voice router that then went to the outside world, of course, to wherever it's supposed to go. So there wasn't really there. It was a project we were going to have to kind of cope around, whether we go digital or just whatever. But so I rebooted this server, and then I went back to my desk, was pinging it, wasn't coming up, and I was like, oh, this is taking longer than normal. So I go back in there, pull up the console, and it's like stuck on like the press F1 key or something like that, whatever it was to continue. So pressed it, and then it was like just like if you've been on a server, it goes through like its little check down, RAID, iDRAC, all those different types of things, spins the RAID configurations up. But it was just kind of just stuck in the loop of like, hey, almost as if the hard drive was like empty of no OS to boot to, because it would just keep looping back through. And I'm like, oh, what's going on here? Like, all I did was reboot this thing. Yeah, the server was old and greatly it wasn't like, mission critical, but these were people's faxes that weren't going out. So, I was trying to see what was going on, but other than, me being able to really check, some, reboot it, unplug it, open it up, make sure all the connections and stuff were good. All I could do was just, plug it back in and, try to get this thing going again. But so unbeknownst to me, I try to do all that again and it still doesn't come up. So we're in a little bit of a situation here because this old server, we don't really have like any, spare drives for, spare parts, stuff like that. So, I couldn't really like try to get this thing, reverted back to like some old version or some sort, or, take parts from another one and try to make something out of nothing and get this thing back going. So we spent some time. We did have this one that was particularly the same as it, but the drives, I wasn't seeing like any drive issues or anything, so I wasn't kind of sure where to start. So I ended up trying to see if I could restore the disk, maybe just go from a backup and do that. Well, put the the software in that we were using to do restores, did the restore on the server, did the reboot, nothing still came up. And we were like, okay, what's wrong? Is it the RAID battery, or is it losing its RAID configuration of some sort, or did it lose its RAID configuration during the reboot? Maybe the RAID battery was bad or something like that. So, this is just, long, and, it's going into like the end of day. And it's like, I think at this point, 6, 7 o'clock at night, it's just me and another guy working on it, trying to get this thing back going so that people can start getting their invoices. Because the longer and longer that this is down, it's just going to become more of a bigger problem. So we kind of came to a standstill of like, hey, man, like there's nothing we can really do. What's next steps? So I was like, there's only a couple different, options here. We either look for a server that can get here really quick with this same, type of, system that can handle the same type of dedicated card, or we try to look for a newer system that can take the same type of card, but it's going to be new OS. We got to set it all up. But the only downside to that is with the newer version, there could be some problems with it integrating with our ERP system, because basically now we're going from a 2003 server, old OS, to a new server with a new OS and new program that could then break applications that connected to it using like say older protocols or something like that. So we couldn't really go that route, and the other route would have taken too long to find something old, and then your best bet is getting something off eBay or serversupply.com or some type of refurbished site that gives you something that doesn't just work right when you get it. Maybe something's off, or it's missing some pieces, or the drives are not compatible with what you're currently running in that server or whatever. So I made the conscious decision that, okay, hey, look, we were gonna make all this digital anyway. So what we were gonna actually do to get the faxes digital, and that can actually still integrate in with our ERP system without changing much. So we already had some users going fax to email. So we were like, okay, this is what we'll do, because basically it was just a field change in our ERP system to where we could send all the emails out to whoever had this field checked that says send to email. And we were trying to do this all along. This is like a long-standing project of like, hey, if we sign up new customers, we're going to have them use email instead of fax. And then over time, we'll slowly get people who are on fax over to email. But the problem is we had a lot of older customers who basically they were used to fax. They were used to it coming into their fax machine, they print it out. Or if they, didn't have email, they would have to, set it up, which, I mean, they some had email, but they just probably didn't use it as much, for certain things. So, with that, I was like, okay, hey, we got about. I had one of our programmers give us a list of like who is all the customers that's using fax. Sent us a list, and I was like, hey, next day we got to come in. We're just gonna hammer this out all day. And I think we spent probably like no joke from 8 to like till probably close, and we called probably a good four, maybe 300 to 400 customers, like just all day. Just hey, we need your email. We're decommissioning fax. We're going to email. And if they didn't have email, it was like, hey, well, you can't get invoices. It was like a legit hard cutoff. And it was one of those moments where, like, I was like excited about the improvement that we kind of made, but kind of bummed about the whole situation of like having to force everything on the customers. But at the same time, it was needed to be happening. I mean, there was no way we was going to be able to stick an older server back in there just to get up and running. We didn't want to buy nothing new and try to have to integrate everything in. So it was one of those situations where uh, us not having the backups working and the old server not having parts or a backup was like in our favor. And I just had to come to, the bosses and let them know, like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is my, how I feel about the situation, and it's going to be a better, going forward path for us anyway. So, yeah, after that, yeah, we literally hammered through that all day, and it was good. As far as me, I was able, getting on the calls, talking to customers, telling them the situation, and a lot of them was receptive. You had some who were kind of bummed about like, hey, why do I have to change this? Um, we're used to now because like some, for instance, like now that it's going to email, some of them didn't have group emails to say, hey, these are all the people it should go to. So they had to give us individuals, or they didn't have IT people to make group emails. So basically now, instead of going to a fax machine in the office, it's going to someone's emails. But, over time, I think they'll probably adjust to the fact that, hey, once it comes into the email, we can disperse it to people or start to do like some type of forwarding and things like that. So that's when one of the IT stories that I wanted to share today. It's real. That was a real like kind of say fun time to kind of get my hands dirty and getting back on the phones, talking to customers, and getting a situation rectified in a quickly manner. I mean, like I said, it was basically a matter of 24 hours that hey, we got a notification the server was down for a couple of days, and within the next day, we were already hammering out all these people going to email. So it was really nice that I was able to do that. And I think if you have any other stories in regards to kind of some IT stories that you're hearing me share, drop me a comment down below, and I'll be sure to maybe we can collaborate something and get things going. Check out my site back here, letmetechu.com. I'll be doing a lot of different labs and videos and things like that on different things, automation, cloud, networking. So if you see anything in there, drop me a message on one of the pages, and I'll be able to get back with you. Again, like and subscribe if you can. I'll be doing more of these videos of IT short stories, whether it's about me and some of the stories I've been through, or if you want to jump on and share some of the stuff you have been with, drop me a message in the comments below. And like I said, I'll get back with you. Again, thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next time.